Welcome to Matters Financial and Geopolitical from the Frontier, and thanks again for stopping by. I do appreciate it. Just to once again thank Charles Ireland. We're editing his video footage. We hope to have something up later on today, and he really was a great guest at Mindspeak, most enjoyable. And I put up the link for his presentation, the PDF, and as I said, we'll be uploading on Rich TV imminently. I wrote that piece about how Kenya can be a major transit point like Dubai, and I'll put up this photograph I took of Dubai from the sky, and I was just saying about Dubai that as I sat and waited for my destination, I heard nearly every possible destination in the world being called, and I think Dubai is the real transit state, a connection point in an interconnected century. And I was then referring to a photograph that I showed you yesterday, which was from 1991. It's really extraordinary. And I was referring to Geneva as well, and the idea of global fluency, and that being the level of global understanding, competence, practice that an area exhibits in an increasingly interconnected world economy. Home Thoughts, I've been playing Move On Up by Curtis Mayfield to myself, and it's just such a spectacularly good song, I must say. And I was playing it very loudly this morning. I came across this photograph of Didier Reindeer visiting a museum in Tehran via Twitter, so I'm going to put that up and remind you that he was a fantastic guest at Mindspeak last year. Aisha took a photograph of my interview with him, and I'll put up a link for his Mindspeak. Political Reflections, a wanted poster for Viktor Yanukovych in Kiev, and obviously he's now being accused of all kinds of things. Spengler, careful what you wish for in Ukraine. Western governments are jubilant over the fall of Ukrainian President Yanukovych, a Russian ally. They may be underestimating Vladimir Putin. Russia has the option to hasten Ukraine's slide into chaos and wait until the hapless European Union acquiesces to, if not begs for, Russian intervention. Leaves the West with a limited number of choices. The first is to do nothing and watch the country spiral into chaos, with Russia as the eventual beneficiary. The second is to dig deep into its pockets and find $20 billion or more to buy near-term popularity for a pro-Western government, an unlikely outcome. And the third, and the most realistic, is to steer Ukraine towards a constitutional referendum, including the option of partition. Moscow has no need of allies with weak stomachs, but it will withdraw the offer of $15 billion worth of Ukrainian debt purchases and subsidies for natural gas exports to Ukraine, and leave the nearly bankrupt country to the ministrations of the West. Careful what you wish for, Russia is telling the West. And I personally cannot see Europe, the US, and the IMF ponying up $15 billion in a hurry. And therefore, I think it's very much a poisoned chalice, a little like it was for Mohamed Morsi in Egypt. Moscow said it would not deal with those who led an armed mutiny against Yanukovych, who was elected in 2010, and I think that's the correct characterization in point of fact. Russian general says we are at war. This is an interview from February the 5th. General Leonid Ivashov, the former foreign relations head of the Russian Ministry of Defense, current president of the Academy of Geopolitical Studies. Apparently they, officials of the EU, the US Secretary of State John Kerry, have dedicated themselves and continue to do so to deeply and thoroughly studying the doctrine of Dr. Goebbels. They present everything backwards from reality. It is one of the formulas which Nazi propaganda employed most successfully. They accuse the party that is defending itself of aggression. What is happening in Ukraine and Syria is a project of the West, a new type of war. In both places you see a clear anti-Russian approach, and as is well known, wars today begin with psychological and information warfare operations. Kerry and Obama are encouraging in Kiev what they harshly repress in their country. European leaders break up unauthorized demonstrations with hoses, throwing demonstrators in jail, while in the Ukrainian case they do the exact opposite, and on top of that they threaten Russia. Logically, this is part of information warfare. And then, so basically, from there I jumped to an article I wrote on the 17th of September 2012 called "The Madding Crowd," and I was saying, I was referring to Sam Basile, but I think it applies anyway. But I was referring to something written in the U.S. Army College Quarterly of 1997. The U.S. officer assigned to the Deputy Chief of Staff Intelligence, charged with defining the future of warfare, wrote, "One of the defining bifurcations of the future will be the conflict between information masters and information victims. This information warfare will not be couched in the rationale of geopolitics," the author suggests, "but will be spawned, like any Hollywood drama, out of raw emotions, hatred, jealousy, greed, emotions rather than strategy, will set the terms of information warfare struggle." And then I like this comment saying, Ukraine's crisis, which went from a simple protest to the weekend's regime change, and perhaps a full-blown civil war in months to come, once again highlights humans' inability to assess the potential evolution of events from the ordinary to revolutionary sea changes. Jumping from there to South Sudan, I saw this Twitter from the BBC World Service: "It's only now the bodies had been collected." This is evidence of mass killing in South Sudan. Finally, in this political piece, fears of Syria militancy expand influence of Saudi prince. Saudi Interior Minister Mohammed bin Nayef, perhaps the most powerful younger prince in the ruling Al Saud family, shaping Riyadh's new emphases on protecting the kingdom from the fresh wave of Islamist militancy inspired by the war in Syria. The bottom line is Bandar has been toppled. I'll put up a photograph. If you look at this photograph from left to right, there's Dick Cheney, there's Prince Bandar, Condoleezza Rice and George Bush on the Truman balcony of the White House on September 13th, 2001. I'll also put up a photograph of the Saudi Interior Minister Mohammed bin Nayef, the coming man in the House of Saud, it seems. And finally, a picture of a pink bedroom at Saddam Hussein's presidential palace in Baghdad. And that was part of a story about when the dictator's house gets invaded, what you discover. But I thought this was very nice. Currency markets: Euro 137.36, dollar index 80.20. Interestingly, Citigroup's US Economic Surprise Index showed data was the weakest in 7 months. And I, for one, thought the weakening was caused by the cold snap, and I expect a push higher as the weather abates. Japanese yen 102.58, Swiss franc 0.8890, pound 166.66, Aussie above 90 at 0.9030, India rupee 61.98, South Korean won 10.7010, the Rial 233.92, and the Rial is now at the strongest level since December 27th. Egyptian pound 695.99, and the South African rand 1082.15. I think the key level is right up ahead of it now, so we've got to keep an eye on that. The dollar is up 0.5% versus the Japanese currency and down 1.8% against the euro this month. Commodity currencies are poised for the biggest gains. In February, krona up 4.1%, the Rial 3.05%, the Aussie dollar 3.04%, and the Kiwi 2.98%. Dollar index, I'll put up a 3-month chart, continues to trade soft and has zero momentum, in my opinion, at the moment. Euro dollar, I'll put up a 3-month chart, 137.36. Euro area consumer prices rose at an annual 0.8% in January. So you can still see inflation is very, very tame in the euro area. And that's increased concerns that the Europeans might look to encourage the economy further. But nevertheless, I think the euro is well supported. Gold, 1333.75. Prices touched 1339.09, the highest level since October 31st. I, for one, have been caught by this the violence of this rally this year, but I think we're really toppy here. Crude oil, 102.41. My view is you sell it, and sell some more. US natural gas turned lower, sinking 11% after rallying as much as 5.8% to the highest level since December 2008. I think the natural gas rally, the cold snap, has driven up crude oil in its wake. Coffee, however, is a different story. Have a look at this one-year chart, and I think we're still going higher. Brazil, the biggest sugar and coffee grower, had the driest January in 6 decades, scorching crops. Arabica coffee prices surged 19% just last week, the biggest gain since August 2001, and are now at a 16-month high. Then I came across some photographs of a Porsche 911 50th anniversary edition, which I thought was rather grand, couldn't resist it, and a 2012 Lamborghini Aventador. Both are on display in Los Angeles, and both look rather attractive. Coming to Africa, the big news obviously was Uganda President Yoweri Museveni's signing of an anti-homosexual bill into law at the State House in Entebbe yesterday. There's now an attempt at social imperialism to impose social values. We're sorry to see that you, the West, live the way you live, but we keep quiet about it, he said. Gay and lesbian organizations in Africa fear the ripple effect from the anti-gay bill could spread beyond Uganda to other parts of a continent where conservative societies tend to view homosexuality as unnatural. It's a gloomy day, not just for the gay community in Uganda, but for all Ugandans who care about human rights, because this law will affect everybody, said a gay rights campaigner in Uganda. Amnesty said the law was wildly discriminatory and amounted to a grave assault on human rights. The problem, I'm afraid, is that, I don't know if it's a problem, but the issue is really that this is a very popular move. Every single person I ask tends to agree with what Museveni's done. I, of course, think that it's a slap in the face of basic human rights. South Sudan's factions vie for control of oil fields. This is in the FT. Warring factions in South Sudan are battling for control of the country's dwindling oil production. In a sign, both sides have given up on faltering peace talks and are instead seeking a military and economic stranglehold over the cash-strapped country. Oil companies have evacuated non-essential staff from fields in Upper Nile State following renewed fighting in Malakal, the regional capital, over the past week. Oil production was hit earlier in the crisis when rebels in late December took control of Unity State, the other oil-rich region. An aide to Mr. Machar said the fighting was heading towards the oil fields of Adar and Paloik in Upper Nile State. There can be no work because of the fighting. That will stop the oil, the aide said. Then saying, the oil companies, China National Petroleum Company and Malaysia's Petronas, are evacuating staff. They are lifting as many non-essential workers as they can. Industry officials say oil output has fallen to about 150,000 barrels per day, down 40% from the start of the conflict, and saying that the output drop and worries of further shutdowns is forcing regular buyers of South Sudanese oil, such as China, to seek alternatives. This is the comment that I thought was on the money. RIC will cut off the oil production and squeeze Salva's cash. And I think that's what's going to happen, and I think Salva's not going to be able to prevent it because it's all a very asymmetric response. I thought it was interesting. Until 1960, thanks to Congo, Belgium was one of the most powerful states in the world, said Brussels. The South African All Shares up 2.55% this year. Dollar versus Rand, as I said, we're strengthened, we're near resistance. The Rand probably goes to 1072, as high as that, but I think it backs up off there. I'll put up a 3-month chart. Egyptian pound, 696 area. The Egyptian stock market up 18.69% this year, and that's more than a 5-year high. It's Africa's best by a mile. The Egyptian government resigned, paving the way for Sisi to seek the presidency, and I think he's a shoo-in. The Nigerian all shares down 6.34% so far this year, and I think the market largely believes, and correctly in my view, that Sanusi's suspension has dealt a terminal blow for Nigeria's corruption fight. On that note, there's another very interesting article about the oil thieves of the Niger Delta. Just read you a couple of paragraphs. As night falls on a recent evening in the Mazalik creeks of the Niger Delta, several oil thieves plunge into the dense green mangroves along the Nun River. Above the forest, black coils of smoke rise to the sky. The river hums with outboard motors as skiffs carry residents to communities. In the web of Nun offshoots, the boats halt at military checkpoints, barges manned by idle soldiers. Silhouetted passengers raise their hands to show they are unarmed and not transporting stolen oil. Put up a photograph of workers in Sakibo's refining camp this January. Ghana Stock Exchange is up 13.48% in 2014. Africa's second best in SEDI terms, but obviously have suffered a devaluation. Then I came across this photograph from Sudan, Naga's Temple of Amun, which I thought was very good. Interesting report about how US investments are surging for African tech entrepreneurs. In fact, 2013 was the most active year for technology investment on the continent. I think that's about to really explode, and I think we're not far away from a big transaction which will capture everybody's attention. Coming to Kenya, the recent tapering of quantitative easing in the US suggests that Kenya's sovereign bond may be priced between 7.625% and 8.125%. Mr. Rotich states in the medium-term debt strategy, and I think he's right on the money. That's about right, and it will be oversubscribed at that rate, even if the issue size is $2 billion. South African financial services group Metropolitan International has acquired a majority stake in the Kenyan insurer Canon for 2.4 billion shillings. And this is part of this buyout frenzy I wrote about last year, saying that it's not a barbarians at the gate moment. I was referring to the RJR Nabisco takeover. But I'm clearly, I said then, seeing an acceleration in activities becoming broader based, advertising, banking, IT, beauty, insurance. I described it as a land grab. Equity Bank has applied for a license to operate a mobile telephone business, which I think is a very clever idea. Equity Bank, I'll put up a link for the share price. They're expected to report full year results, as are KCB on Thursday. Mr. Kibati of Mumia Sugar disclosed that the company is shopping for a strategic partner to inject fresh capital and provide technical expertise towards the development of the integrated Tada sugar project. Mumia Sugar reported first half results where they narrowed the loss before tax, to 104 million from previously 1.58 billion. I think the price is well supported now at 3. You can see a path back to break even. Kenya shilling 86.449 early this morning. The Nairobi all share up 2.136% so far this year, and 3.45% below a record high set on the 24th of January this year. The NSE 20 is down 1.59%. Yesterday, EABL surged 8.196% and has now rallied 22.374% since closing at a 52-week low of 219 last Wednesday in the aftermath of the results. But I think, as I said then, I think it was stripped away Senator. These were strong results. Safaricom closed at 11.45. My target is 13.50 for the full year results. Longhorn Kenya unchanged at 14.20 reported first half results, which were quite strong. Those were analysed on the website. KCB unchanged at 44. Announced KCB Capital had got an investment banking license. CFC Standard Bank at 103, up 18.39% in 2014, headed to 120 at the very least. And then EABL rallied 8.196% yesterday. After the first half results were released, the price slumped 13.438% through the 19th of February. Closed on Wednesday last week at 219, a 52 plus week low, and since then has rallied 22.374. As I said, the Senator story was an unknown. Once you peered through that, you saw that the flagship Tusker brand up 17, Guinness up 24. There was a lot of strength. Kengen was down 3.53% and has slumped 20.66% this year, as folks anticipate a deluge of supply via the rights issue et al. Once again, thank you for stopping by. I do appreciate it. If you want to track the Nairobi Securities Exchange in real time, register on the site rich.co.ke. It's free. Then go to Rich Live during trading hours and you'll have everything laid out in front of you. Thank you for stopping